is your favorite cartoon squirrel of all time? So we've got, let's see, we've got Scrat from Ice Age, maybe Sandy Cheeks from SpongeBob SquarePants. But my favorite squirrel of all time has got to be Rocky from Rocky and Bullwinkle, the flying squirrel. Okay, so while you people who didn't answer, while you guys are thinking about your favorite cartoon squirrel, I'm going to tell you a story about the day my granddad totally ruined squirrels for me, but simultaneously taught me a lesson that now 30 years later I was able to use last month to get me in the right mindset during COVID. So if you can imagine for a moment, I'm knee-high to a grasshopper, okay? And if I didn't have old knees, I'd kind of let you know how I was crouched down beside him one summer day on the porch, sitting there beside my granddad, mouth open, which we now know is a red flag for airway concerns for kids, right? But that's another speech. Remind me to tell you about that later. But so I'm sitting there, mouth open, waiting for him to tell me one of his legendary stories. And right as he starts to get in the good part of the beginning of the story, this squirrel starts skipping around the yard. And he totally pivots his thought and starts to tell me about how if he was a much younger man, he'd go out there and go chase the squirrel down and eat the squirrel. And I said, ugh, granddaddy, yuck, I'm not gonna eat a squirrel. That's the grossest thing I've ever heard of, yuck. And he said something to me that I remember even though that was almost 30 years ago. He said in his country voice, that's because you don't know what it's like to be hungry, girl. Button touching your backbone, you don't know what it's like to be hungry. Now, full disclosure, that's the PG version of the story. The real version is there's a small orifice, a little bit lower than about here, and he was asking me if my belly button. So anyways, I remember thinking, even at 3 or 4, how hungry does someone have to be for their belly button to be touching? But also, man, I'm glad I have no idea what it's like to be that hungry. Fast forward 30 years later, this time last month, I think you all remember something that went down. And I was sitting at home, staring out the window, like many of you, thinking, I should be at the office. And like many of you, I was wrestling with the thoughts of the defeat from having to furlough my staff. I was thinking about struggling to provide basic necessities for my household, like toilet paper. And even with all my optimism, like many of you, I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Suddenly, as I'm looking out the window, sitting at home in a daze, a squirrel starts to skip across my lawn. And I thought to myself, my stomach's not touching my backbone, my mouth's not watering, I don't want to eat it. Whatever I've got going on right now, it can't be that bad. So the next time you're down and out, can't see the other end of the tunnel, it seems like nothing, it can't get worse than this. I want you to think about your superhero cartoon squirrel, or stand outside and let one skip across your yard and ask yourself, are you ready to fire up the grill? Is your mouth watering? Does it sound delicious? Or is your belly button? Well, you know. Thank you, guys.
I'm Amber Lovatos. And I'm super excited to make it to the second round because I'm going to talk to you about how I turned my pain into my passion. We're going to take you back to when Amber was a little girl. My parents are immigrants from Mexico. I'm first generation Mexican American, where we were low income. My parents went to 6th grade education in Mexico, so they didn't know anything about oral health, which meant that they didn't teach me anything about oral health. They didn't tell me to brush my teeth. I don't know that I even really had a toothbrush. They didn't tell me to floss because they didn't know that flossing was a thing. So I obviously had a lot of dental problems. The The first time I went to the dentist, I was a tween. I went to the dentist because I was in pain. I'm sure the dentist told my parents that I needed a root canal, which they couldn't afford. So instead, my mom took me home and we ground up cloves and then we put water on it and put that in my tooth. And then I slept away the pain. The next time I went to the dentist, I was 15. My cousin had given my mom unsolicited advice and told her that, if you just take out a few of Amber's teeth, her teeth will be straight. And we know that that's not true, right? But my mom didn't know that's not true. So my mom, wanting the best for me, took me to Mexico, and for 200 pesos, which is $20, they extracted my maxillary permanent canines. So I know now when you see me smile, you're gonna think, dang, she's got some sharp premolars. After that, the next time I went to a dentist, I was 18. That was the first time I received preventative or restorative dental care. At 17, I became a teen mom. Because I was low income, I qualified for Medicaid, which I don't think that, teen pregnancy should be the gateway to dental care, but for me it was. They had to extract my mandibular first molars because the decay was so bad, which made occlusion identification on me in hygiene school really difficult because I didn't have molars or canines. They had to do crowns and root canals and fillings. I'm pretty sure they did perio treatment. And this is embarrassing, but as a teenager, I remember I would wake up in the morning, there'd be blood on my pillow, and there'd be dry blood in my commissures. My mouth would be thick. And I didn't know why this was. I thought this was normal. But I made a connection that after I got a cleaning, that stopped. We're gonna fast forward 15 years. I've now been a hygienist 7 years, and I've spent the majority of that volunteering. I organized over 40 community outreach events where we've done oral cancer screenings, fluoride applications, sealants days, hygiene care days. I volunteered for the Special Olympics, making sports guards for the athletes. I've volunteered for Texas Mission of Mercy, organizing the events, not just volunteering at the events. I am now the dental director at Tamagua Healthcare Ministries. We're a nonprofit community dental clinic. We provide affordable and comprehensive dental care to uninsured and low-income individuals, and we educate them. To give you an example, our extractions are $25, our fillings are $13, our crowns are $150. We go to Title I schools, do exams, floor applications, and those kids, then they come back to us and receive care. Last year, I did my first CE for a cause, where I recruited big-time speakers like Katrina Sanders, Emily Bogie, Denise Mans, Catherine Gillum, who donated their times, and some of them, their honorarium. And the money that we raised went back to our clinic. And then we served more people. This year, I got the ADHA IOH grant for $10,000 so that I can go out to rural communities to provide care. And that's how I turned my pain into passion. Thank you.
My name is Holly Ann Mitchell. I once read a poem about a little girl who held her hand out for a cube of sugar, and every time she brought it to her lips, she tasted salt. And once again, she'd hold her little hand out for sugar, but time and again, she would be greeted with salt. Yet every once in a rare, rare while, she'd hold her hand out and taste that sweet sugar, and it kept her coming back, hopeful. That was the relationship I had with my father. Playing with my father was like playing with a beautiful tiger. Even though we were laughing, I was holding my breath for fear of releasing his anger. My father was ridiculously handsome, funny, charming. He played the drums. I remember sitting on his lap as a baby while we made music together. He took good care of his body. His health was important to him. But though his body was healthy, his mind betrayed him. He slept with a gun under the headboard and suffered from night terrors. I remember when I was 13 years old, he locked himself in the bathroom, threatening to commit suicide. My mother gathered us up and took us to Nana's house. We didn't go home that night. I wondered if we'd find him dead. I hated his darkness and wanted to heal it at the same time. As I think back on my memories of my father, it wasn't all salt. Some of it was sugar. My favorite memory of my father was when I came home from school and the house was shaking with rock and roll. I asked him who the singer was, and he says, Jimi Hendrix. I didn't know who that was. He says, hold on, and he rolls up the carpet. A blues guitar begins to play. There's a red house over yonder, and that's where my baby stays. He tells me to stand on his feet, and we dance together. And I remember for one of the few times in his life that he was happy. My father had so many regrets. There were so many things he wanted to do and be, but he never got the chance. And I believe that he willed his body to create the cancer that would ultimately take his life a year and a half ago. I remember walking into the hotel room, seeing my father for the last time. His lower body was swollen with fluid and his upper body was emaciated. I slipped my hand inside the mess of tubes and found his hand and grabbed it hard. I'm sorry, baby, he says to me. I'm sorry I wasn't more. Oh, Dad, I said, smiling. 50% of me is you. So I think you did okay. He laughed. And in that moment of laughter, I saw his soul and our souls touched. And any anger or pain that I had held for him was gone, and there was only love. I never knew that the greatest love story of my life would be the one I had with my father. See, his body and his nervous system were incapable of loving me the way that his soul really wanted to. And after his passing, I understand now that inside of every body, every nervous system, there's a soul just trying to peek through. But it gets obscured by trauma. And every now and again, when we're laughing or dancing or singing or crying, the soul peeks through and we see each other. I imagine him now as the child he might have been if he hadn't been born into a long line of abusers. But his legacy is me now. And it's a legacy of healing and love and music and the courage to live my life without any regrets. And I am so grateful to be his daughter. Thank you, Daddy. Thank you.
We've heard speakers talk about taking responsibility, radical honesty, bearing your soul, being authentic. And I don't know about you, but I came from a very authentic dirt place. You see, I was born in South Georgia. Anybody else from South Georgia? It's just up there in the Okefenokee swamp, and it's about real as you get. When I moved from Georgia to Washington State, my mama said, Vicki Lynn, could you have gone any further? And I said, well, Mama, Canada's still 70 miles away. You see, I was running from my roots, and I was running hard. Growing up, I had a cousin, Billy. Now, anybody know Ron White? Right? Ron, what does Ron White say? Ron White says, you just can't fix stupid. Now, my cousin Billy was just like that, and there was no fixing him. We'd walk down the dirt road, and before you know it, he's all caught up in barbed wire. And I was like, Billy, how the hell, we didn't know that word back then, how the H-E double hockey sticks, Dad, did you get in that barbed wire? I don't know. Can you just cut me out? Like Billy was always falling out of trees. He ended up with a metal plate in his head. We still don't know why. I remember one time going home to a family reunion, And I walk up to Billy and he says, "Girl, is that you?" And I said, "Yeah, Billy, that's me." He said, "I drove up and I went, dang, ain't she pretty?" And I said, "Billy, tell me you did not come to a family reunion to pick up a woman." And he said, "Well, of course I did. Who else would have me?" Right? And I said, "Billy, where are your teeth?" And he said, "Well, I went to the dentist and he said, it's going to cost $12,000 to fix your teeth." And I said, "Well, hell, Doc, I ain't worth $12,000. So pull them." And I said, "Fine, but didn't he give you dentures?" "Oh, yeah, I wore them. And my daughter said, 'Your teeth just look so big, Daddy. You ridiculous.' So I threw the damn things in the drawer and I forgot them. I ain't corn on the cob. I ain't steak. I ain't anything I want to." Probably uses that metal plate in his head. Now, my mom called me a few years ago and she said, "Becky Land, I just want to let you know your cousin Billy's in the hospital. He done got himself shot." "Well, how? What?" "His wife, Charmaine, she shot him right in the stomach." And the police done come and said, "Billy, you wanna file charges?" And he said, "Hell no, I gave her the gun." You see, that's radical responsibility. That's knowing who you are. And in that moment, he said, we were in a fight. And I said, "Woman, if you don't love me, if you hate me that much, take my gun and shoot me." And she did. It's my fault. I can't charge her with anything. Now, I hope that in your life, you don't have the same kind of insanity that runs through my little redneck family, and you can make wiser choices. So each day, as you're watching the squirrel come across your path, and you're walking down the dirt road of life, don't end up in the barbed wire. You are smart, intelligent, heartfelt people. Make the radical choice. Be honest and take responsibility. Thank you.
So my name is Lane Martin. Actually, a real honor to be able to speak today. Like Eric, yesterday was my first time ever on stage and speaking, so I really appreciate it. So imagine getting attacked by 5 of the most lethal people you've ever seen. I had that experience. I chose that experience and I embraced it. 3 years ago, I was initiated into one of the most elite martial arts groups around. I'll never forget that day. November, blue skies. The test started at 7 p.m. and went to 6 a.m. the next morning. 11 hours straight of getting the shit kicked out of you. No water, no food. Just pure will and mental toughness. You know, I walked into my apartment building at 7 a.m. I had a black eye on one eye, a cut on the other. The doorman in my building said, "Doc, are you okay?" I said, "Bobby, never better." I had a smile ear to ear. Why'd I do it? I dared to be great. And all of you could dare to be great without doing any crazy martial arts initiation. You know, that day in November was one of my best days, a day I'll never forget. One of my worst days, getting the call that my patient and my buddy, who was 40, died of sleep apnea. You've all heard the statistics. 40% of the population snore. 90 million Americans have sleep apnea. On that day, the statistics didn't matter. Only one did, my buddy. Everyone here has patients out there like that, with all the signs and symptoms of sleep apnea. I miss them. And I never want to miss them again. You know, there's a great book by Brene Brown, Daring Greatly, right? It talks about vulnerability and fear. For so long, I was afraid of being wrong. I was afraid of making mistakes. I did what I was comfortable doing, prepping teeth. And let me tell you, I was great at prepping teeth. I took so much pride in my preps, my restorations, achieving the ideal occlusion, but I missed the bigger problem, airway. You know, you've heard so many people talk about it, but you know, we have such an amazing opportunity to really bridge the gap between medicine and dentistry. You know, the fact is, I haven't gotten a paycheck in 2 years, and this is the happiest I've been since I was in the military. I love waking up every day with a purpose. You know, I got comfortable doing what I was doing, and I had a great practice in Manhattan, New York, and it was lucrative, but I didn't love waking up every day. I felt like a mechanic. I wanted better. You know, I really, really embraced this whole airway sleep thing. You know, before I finish, I want to go back to my martial arts experience. I've run marathons. I've done triathlons. I went through boot camp in the military. I've played competitive sports. Joining that elite martial arts brotherhood was the hardest thing I ever did. You know, people ask me, why'd you do it? I wanted to be better. We should all want to be better. You know, my friends ask me now, like, why do you go back? Why do you go sell your practice and go back to school? I wanted to be better. Again, we should all want to be better. You know, prior to selling my practice, I listened to a great TED Talk by Sean Aker. He talked about happiness. And he defined happiness as the joy one feels striving towards their potential. You know what? Like, I'm striving towards my potential now, and it's great. There's a great quote by Bruce Lee, who's one of my idols. Don't pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult one. I want to say to all of you, dare to be great. And if we dare to be great as a profession and dare to pivot and really focus on airway first, we could have the greatest impact on all of our patients. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angela Davis Sullivan. I was sitting there in a chair. The sweat was pouring off of me. The back of my hair was wet, which wouldn't be unusual for a Florida day, except for the fact we were inside. We were at a team meeting. Why am I sweating? Well, we were going to learn some new skills today. Dr. John had shared his vision, and we were having a great time planning our next trip. And then our coach, let's call her Vicky, said, we're going to learn some new skills today, so let's practice that. I quickly learned that that phrase, practice that, means we're going to do role play. Yeah, teams love that. We try to make it a fancy word. We're going to practice it. Why don't we play with this a little bit? It's role playing. And I was sweating. So we sat down and we start doing our exchange. I'm soaking it all in. Okay, that wasn't bad. Let's do it again. Okay. Did it again. Okay, that was better, but let's do it again. Okay, let's do it again. I do it again. Still not there. So now the sweat is met with tears. And I said, what in the world? And I left. I left the team meeting. I walked down the hall. I was pissed. Why couldn't I get this? I'm a smart person. I can figure this out. I can see Dr. John looking at me. He believes in me. My team is looking at me. They want me to be successful because they don't want to have to do it next. My coach is looking at me like, you can do this. So I put my big girl panties on, walked right back out there, sat down, and said, let's do it. And I nailed it. Well, at least I think I nailed it. Even if I didn't, it was much better that I didn't have to do it anymore. The sweat was gone. Here's what I want you to know. I got uncomfortable and I grew because I continued to work on that skill, and I was routinely presenting $50,000 and $60,000 cases and getting yes. Getting yes. So doctors, think about it. Where do you need to get uncomfortable? where do you need to stretch and grow? Team members, where do you see yourself going in the next couple years? What's possible for you? What are you willing to do different to get a different result? Look, the comfort zone is pretty sweet, right? It's nice and warm. You're the expert there. But the magic, it happens over here, just outside that circle. That's where the magic happens. So my hope for you, doctors, team members, stretch. Go make that magic. Eleanor Roosevelt says, do one scary thing every day. I can check that off today. Team members, when you have the opportunity to role play, practice, play with this new idea, embrace it. It's going to pay off for you. Thank you.
My name is Brandy Hooker Evans, and I want to know how many of you in this room have ever been a teenager before? Raise your hand and keep it up. Yeah? Okay. Now, without letting your bum leave the seat, stretch it up. Give me a little stretch. Awesome. For everyone, there was about this much difference. That little extra is what we're going to talk about today. Frequently, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is just that little extra. Now, I'm so glad that you've all been teenagers before, because can I tell you, I have 2 at home and 2 on their heels. I have 4 kids between the age of 6th grade and 12th grade at home. Yeah, it's super fun. No, really it is. When I want to do something a little extra for them, when I want to start their day well, I make their favorite Swedish pancakes. My kids think there is something magical about my Swedish pancakes. Now, you might say that it's the love I put into them. And you're right, I can't skip that. But that's not it. I do something a little different, a little extra. I put a teeny tiny bit of almond extract into these pancakes. And without fail, the smell wafting down the stairs has all 4 of these beautiful humans up and out of bed on time. This is a feat, trust me. Upstairs saying things like, Mom, yes, I love these. And I told you she was making them. But what about those days where the special breakfast didn't happen and it started out hard? Just like setting the tone for my kids well can help them succeed and have a great day, starting out hard can also set the tone for a rough day. I'm a dental hygienist. We talked about that earlier. Have any of you ever had a rough morning, got to work, whatever you do, and the wave of just relax, I got to work, washes over you, only to have your first patient 15 minutes late. Pretty soon we're ready for an exam, and the doctor is really busy because he's in fishing world with Mr. Ashton. The whole day passes you by. You do not have so much as a chance to get a snack, and thank God that you are part camel, because ain't nobody got time to pee. Or get a drink to need to pee. Seriously, where are my hygienists out there? So I believe that the best way to be able to combat, to be able to enjoy these rough days is to put in just that little extra. For me, it is loving my patients and my teammates well. I show up and I see people and I love them where they're at, no matter how hurried or frazzled I am. Now, it seems like my cup is empty, but would you go with me for a sec and believe that when my cup is empty and I start filling someone else's up, there's no bottom to mine and to what I can give. So that little extra, what's yours? What's your love? What's your sunshine? What's your almond extract? I would like to propose a toast. Cheers to that little extra, taking life from ordinary to extraordinary. May we all put it into each and every day with purpose. Thank you.
So my name is Jeff Buski, and we're going to entitle this Growing Up Minnesota. Or Minnesota, if you would. See, that's where I grew up, and I loved playing high school hockey. And this beautiful afternoon, I came around the net, picking up speed, and I grabbed the puck, and I was headed up the ice with a full head of steam. The first man came at me, and I put a move on, and he missed. The second man came at me, and I put a move on, and he missed. The third man came on, I put a move on, and he didn't miss. I caught his elbow in my face. It took me off my skates, and the next thing I knew, I thought I was seeing stars. But the truth is, it was the lights at the top of the arena. And as I lay there in a minute and I regained my consciousness, I grabbed my equipment and I brought myself back to the bench. When I arrived at the bench, I could taste the blood on my lips. I took off my helmet and I said, oh my gosh, I took my mouth guard out and I asked my buddy sitting next to me, where am I cut? And he said, forget cut, where is your tooth? And I thought, oh my God, I reached up there with my tongue and it was true. I was missing half of my front tooth. A flood of emotions came over me, most of them fear. Like, I hope that my dentist can recreate my smile. I hope that my parents can afford it. And I hope they're not mad at me. And secondly, how long is this going to take? And is it going to hurt? It's the same thing that our patients feel. But that wasn't the only fear that I had that day. I had another fear. You see, I had a date that night with a girl from another school, and it was my first date. So I had a decision to make. Was I going to hide in my fear? Or was I going to be willing to be rejected? I chose to show up. She opened the door and greeted me, and I smiled, and she said, oh my gosh, what happened to your tooth? And I told her the story. And she greeted me with compassion and kindness and asked me, would you still like to go out? I said, of course, that's why I'm here. And see, I learned something very powerful that day. I learned the fact that vulnerability is the pathway to power. If you want to be one of the most powerful people in the room, it's not about how loud you can get or how much animation you have. It's truly the fact, can you sit back and be vulnerable? Can I give you a reason to accept me or reject me? I had one of my mentors once say, Jeff, a boy does not become a man until he no longer fears disapproval. And a man does not become free until he no longer needs approval. When you no longer need approval, your cup is full. And when your cup is full, you can love your life, you can be powerful, you can be vulnerable, you can be you. Thank you very much.
In my first talk, I talked about empowering patients to say yes. I want to spend a few moments talking about what we can do for ourselves. True story, I had an office manager, she said, Shireen, I turned the lights off in my office to pretend like I'm not there, but I'm really off to the side, eating my lunch, or I'm meditating because I'm so stressed out. And then I had an assistant share with me recently. She said, Shireen, I only drink a half a cup of water during my lunch break to avoid having to use the restroom because there's not enough time. Now, when you hear stories like that, what does that say to you? To me, it says that in dentistry, we go to great lengths to taking care of our patients, but we fail to preserve our mental, physical, and emotional well-being. So today, I want to just share with you 2 best practices. One that you can do for yourself, and one, if you're a practice owner, you can do for your team. So let's start with us. Choosing to live your best life starts with designing a morning ritual, not a routine. Most people start with a routine. They hear someone's listening to another motivational speaker. They try to work out in the morning. But that's not for them. It becomes mundane and it becomes an obligation. A ritual is different. A ritual is a practice that feels sacred. It gives your life meaning and power. For me, I've been doing the same morning ritual for 5 years. A patient gave me a book that changed my life forever. That book is called Jesus Calling by Sarah Young. It's a daily devotional. That book changed my life. So I read that book within the first 60 minutes of when I wake, when my subconscious mind is sharp and impressionable, and it is like a sponge, you could take it in. And when I read that one page, I literally feel as if I am wearing a suit of armor. I can step into my day, and anything that comes my way, I can take it on. So remember, how you start your day determines how your day will end. Now, imagine for a moment, you're in your office, it's crazy busy. But no matter how busy it gets, there's a room off to the back of your office that feels inherently safe. This is a room that you can have in your practice. It's called a wellness room. And I had the pleasure of designing a space like this for practice. And what I loved about designing this room was a couple things. We decided that we were going to co-create and design this space together. So we sent surveys out to everyone in the office because, after all, this is a space for creating wholeness. So everyone needed to be involved. Now, before you panic about spending money, the good news is that we designed this space with an existing room that was being underutilized. We spent less than $300. So we said, first, everyone, we need to choose a paint color. It was a neutral paint. We chose a grayish color. The hygienist was an artist, so she created all the art. And then as far as the flooring, we said, well, what does everybody want? Do you want individual seating or do you want yoga mats? So we decided on yoga mats. And then the rule was that this was a room, one person at a time, 5 minutes. And then the amenities, we decided to include light therapy. And this is an electronic-free room. No phones unless you're going to listen to the Calm or Headspace app. And the collaboration and the engagement was powerful. Not only did this office, this little room feel safe, but the entire office was able to own and say, I'm not perfect. So it's okay if I need a few moments. Ladies and gentlemen, the secret weapon to your success in dentistry is not having a fancy website or a packed schedule. It is self-care. And now, more than ever, it is time for us to embrace self-care as an act of self-love that is non-negotiable. You are the authority of your health and your well-being. And it is up to you to decide to create a space where your staff can thrive with harmony. You cannot give to your patients or your team something you do not have. So I invite you today to embrace self-care as loving acceptance of who you are today, as you embrace being a better version of you tomorrow. Thank you.
I'm Rachel Smith, and so thrilled to be here. Now, I want to tell you guys another story. You know, I like stories if you heard me earlier today. Does anybody know what a White Castle is? Okay. Has anybody had the pleasure of working there? I have. So, 16 years old, You know, I did not grow up with a lot. We had one car between my sister and my mom and myself. So 16 years old, you got to get a job. So I go to White Castle and I get an interview and I talk to the guy, and man, this is going to be it. This is going to be my ticket. It's going to be awesome. And I'm just thinking about the money, but I forgot about the hard work. And if any of you guys worked in fast food or been in fast food or even been in a White Castle, even if you cruise by, you're going to smell like an onion and some pickles. So if you are working there and then you go to dental hygiene school, you are grateful that in 1987, they had mandatory glove use for dental hygiene. My patients would have been like, where are we right now? Are we in the clinic? Are we in the restaurant? Because I definitely had all that. But if you ever have had a job like that, and you know, we've all worked through the stuff, right? Start somewhere, we go to school, we make better of ourselves. But if you've ever had a task like that, where you've had to make pizza or make burgers, and it is a backbreaker, am I right? Anybody else out there work for $3.80 an hour and we're proud of it? Heck yeah, man. So you got to figure out, because you're not coming home with a lot of cash, but you got to figure out, am I going to be able to do this? Is this really going to be like that? And I'm going to borrow from you, Lane. Sean Aker actually put a name to what I tried to do at a young age, and that was find something. Find something about being there that's going to make a difference for you. So I just decided if I was going to be there, I was going to be the best whatever I could be. I was going to pack bags faster than anybody else. I was going to be the best one running the line. And you know what? I was rewarded. I worked there all through high school and all through my dental hygiene training. I held the highest position that you can at White Castle as a part-time employee. And I know that's a great feat, right? But what that did for me is it helped me find joy in whatever I was doing. Now, I'm going to fast forward to 2020. You guys all know about that pandemic thing, right? Of course you do. So we all had to pause. Now, for a girl who had worked as a babysitter and a White Castle girl and then hygiene forever, I was never, ever took time off unless it was like a forced vacation or my husband was grumbly. So when I had a chance to pause those 8 weeks, and we all did, you got to reflect. What did you decide to do with that? Well, I think we all decided that we had to do something. But what was interesting is I got to watch the birds make nests in my backyard. I got to enjoy being home. Got to enjoy to be able to get out on my bike and cycle every day. But then we had to get back to business, right, guys? And nobody knew. It was like a great unknown. A great unknown. So what are you going to do? So I'm going to actually have you, I don't have a prop with me, but I want you to imagine a graph. I want you to imagine a graph that starts here and goes there. And then I also want you, anybody like numbers out there? And Val, you don't count because I know you love them. If you love numbers and you're working at your practice and you're looking at the law of averages, you get out of dental school and you're thinking, okay, how much am I going to make? Well, I'm going to look at those averages. Dental economics is great for that. Kane Waters, which is in my hometown in Dallas, and I know they deal with dentists all the time, they're going to say, sir, we're going to let you know that if you are a one dentist, two hygiene practice, you're going to make 1.2 to 1.3 mil per year. That's your deal. Okay, so cool. So you think you've hit success, right? When you get right to that 1.2, 1.3 mil per year. But what if on that law of averages, you got some guy like working in Edna, Texas, who's making like 2 mil a year? What if we could, instead of looking at just the average, take an outlier and maybe look at that? And maybe if you had that minute that you could do that, it might change what your perspective is. You know what's really crazy? I bet if I asked all you doctors out there right now, how'd you end 2020 with 8 weeks off? Did you almost make your mark for what you were looking for at the end of the year? Were you close? And if you were close, that's where I'm going to challenge you as you go through 2021. Take that with you and blast those averages. Take the momentum and the minute that we had to break and make your teams great and make yourselves great and work for that next average. Because when we do that, it's not about the numbers, folks. It's about patients being served well. And so I thank you very much for your time today. And that's what I'm saying. Just go for another average. I would love that.
Elijah, yeah, tell us what the winner of this year's Dentistry's Got Talent is going to be winning.
First, I want to talk about the Influence Award. This is a really big deal. I'm going to slip on these ones. They feel like bananas. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you, as a meeting planner, the way that we pick our speakers typically to go to our main events are people that really care. The speakers that really care. The speakers that open up the million emails that we send, respond, show up. But one of the biggest things outside of being an extremely talented speaker is actually caring enough to promote the meeting and to help us continue to grow. And so we have so many meeting planners and scouts here and watching from home. And big shout out to Vanessa Emerson. You've been so supportive of me. I couldn't have pulled this off without you and your support. And everybody who aspires to become a speaker, I would highly recommend that you go to Jumpstart. Jumpstart is in January, so thank you for that. And Catherine, you're just a rock star. Oh my gosh. You have so many people that you've coached that have made it to the final. So if you're looking for a speaking coach, I think that those are pretty loud statements that were made there a little bit ago. Now we get to announce, Ian gets to announce the Dentistry's Got Talent overall winner. But first, let me tell you what they're winning. I'll start off by saying that you will be speaking quite often. Huh, Dr. Gupta? People are wanting to have you to come and speak at their events, but I'm going to go ahead and start off by saying this. Last year, we had $75,000 of cash and prizes. This year, guess how much we had? $76,000 of cash and prizes. So the first place winner is going to get a $2,000 Smiles at Sea check, transformational training workshop with Catherine Eitel, 2-day, and that's a $1,200 value. Free registration for Jumpstart plus a 90-minute consultation with Vanessa Emerson. That's a $21,000 value. A contract to the next Smiles at Sea event. That is a $3,500 value. Studio 88 complimentary production session at $5,000 from Studio 88. 1 year of Delivering Wow Boss Academy package, $3,600. Dental Nachos Supreme Membership and Coaching Session, valued at $500. Vivo's Integrated Practice Program, valued at $50,000. Procter & Gamble IO Toothbrush, big thank you for Procter & Gamble for sponsoring this event. Thank you so much. That's valued at $100. Delivering Wow Summit Speaking Opportunity, your flight, your hotel, and the speaking spot in Jamaica this August at the Delivering Wow Conference, $3,000 value. A $5,000 catapult scholarship with Dr. Lou Graham, and big shout out to Lou Graham. Lou, you in the building? Thank you so much for everyone supporting. Now, Ian, where's my championship belt at? Can I hold it one last time? Last year's champion, Dr. Gupta, come on up. And my co-host. And I want to give one more shout out to the man who is not currently present, and that's Jamie Amos, for helping me to create Dentistry's Got Talent. I will never forget where I come from. Thank you. Here you go, Ian. Hold that.
Okay, so I'm kind of actually honored to present the winner for this belt because he touched my heart when he came on stage and gave his speech. So for the first time, give it up for the winner, Dentistry's Got Talent, Mr. Jeff Boosky.
Wow, we talk about a flood of emotions, right? And man, I just so appreciate this opportunity and the opportunity to be here and have such an amazing collective group of genius all in this room and online. It's just such an honor and a privilege to be a part of this community and who you all were. So thank you for showing up the way that you did. I appreciate you very much.
Everybody here is a winner, right? And I'm used to coming in second place, and I'm real happy with it. And I think it's really important to acknowledge the very close second place winner. Holly, stand up. Did you hear her? She said, I have been busy congratulating him on Instagram. It's amazing. Good job. Give it up for our top 10 speakers in Dentistry's Got Talent.
I'm not gonna lie.